we were walking right on the edge of the road, right alongside the roadway, and he came over and he hit us.
Welcome back to Missing. I am Tim here alone in this intro. Don't worry, Lance joins us in the interview. And this is an episode that we released way back in November of 2021. And we are joined by a man named John Palmer, whose wife, Katie Palmer, was hit by a pickup truck on the morning of April 21st, 2020. And she did not survive her injuries. And this interview goes into the details and John and his family's fight for justice. And of course, this episode aired several years ago. And we do have an update interview that we recorded earlier this year that is coming out on Thursday. So that is why we are replaying this here this week. So hopefully you can catch up before the new episode hits the air in just a few days. Make sure to check out justiceforkatiepalmer.com. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. We're going to break quick for commercial here, and we'll be right back with John. Welcome to the podcast, John Palmer. John, how are you today?
Doing great. I appreciate you guys meeting with me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. First, no real words to express our condolences and just our thoughts. Like you've been through such an emotional time, and we truly appreciate you being here with us to talk about it and to talk about getting some deserved justice.
Absolutely. And if it wasn't for platforms like the one that you guys have, my voice and those that are fighting for justice, our collective voices wouldn't be heard. So thank you. Really do appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we have this platform, and sometimes on our shows we'll deviate a bit, and we'll have some fun with some episodes that aren't so justice focused or about people missing persons or homicides that have gone long cold. But we deviate from time to time. But we always try to come back to these stories because we know the power of the platform. We know that people will listen and people will spread the word. And if you need anything done, the listenership is very responsible in that sense. They'll sign petitions. They'll contribute to a GoFundMe. They'll try to talk to whoever can make some difference in some injustice.
Outstanding.
And big shout out to Amanda Shirley, who connected us, who is fighting for justice in her brother's case. It's amazing, always amazing to me how families and advocates kind of connect behind the scenes and talk to these people. And we really say that is a great way to do it as well, because the more people that the more folks that you talk to, more podcasts or TV news appearances you appear on, it just makes it easier, I think, for even bigger shows to cover the case.
It does, and I hate to use this word exposure, but I think it's a word that has to be used. The more podcasts that we're on, I feel like locally, especially with our district attorney, it can't go on to be ignored. The more exposure that we bring, and the more light that's shed on this injustice, surely our elected officials here in Grayson County will have to pay attention.
Absolutely. And this is something that happened to you pretty recently. We're talking April 21st of last year of 2020.
Yes, sir.
We'll talk about the incident itself, but I really want to know about Katie the person. Can you tell us about her if you're able to?
I absolutely can. She was compassionate and caring, and I really hate using the word was, but compassionate, caring, very intelligent. She taught science at the local middle school. She loved teaching. When it came to biology, I can't tell you how many times we'd be sitting at home on a Saturday not doing anything, and she would get us in the car. We go to Hagerman, which is a wildlife refuge, probably 5-10 miles away from our house, and we would be forced to go bird watching. So I don't know if you guys have kids, but trying to get kids that are 7 and 9 to go bird watching was quite a feat. But she was funny, very, and I've said this before, very family centric. Loved her mom and dad. Talked to her mom every day, saw her mom every day, and talked to her dad every day. She was a good soul, and she was my soulmate.
And she was a science teacher?
She taught over at Scott Middle School. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a long story behind that. Sorry.
Please.
So when she got out of college, we went to the same college in Sherman, Texas, Austin College, and she got her degree in biology, and I got my degree in economics. I graduated a year before she did, and she wanted to be a teacher. So that's what she was going to do when she got out. I decided to join the military about a year or two after I got out. So she had just gotten her first teaching job, and I got deployed. I was stationed in Mississippi, and then I was going to be deployed. And so she had to stop teaching and lost her certificate, and basically put her life on hold for four years when I was in the military. And then we had kids. So she raised both Bella and Brandon. And then when they got to be old enough, she started to substitute teach, and then eventually went back into teaching. She went back and had a long-term substitute job over at the high school, and then went over to Scott Middle School, where she taught for four years. I believe she was teacher of the year 2 or 3 times there, and really connected with her students. She brought a STEM program there, and took kids to robotics competitions, and loved it. I mean, that's what, there's some people that are born to do certain things, and man, she had just the best personality to be a teacher. The kids loved her, and she enjoyed it. So sorry, long answer to a short question. Yes, she did teach. She was a science teacher over at Scott Middle School.
No need to apologize. That's it's a good story, and it's also a really good insight into the type of person she was, because I personally love the idea that, you said that she gave 4 years of her life to accommodate your military schedule, and then you had kids. But I don't really see it, as you tell the story, as someone giving part of their life. It's sort of like the compromise you have in a healthy relationship. Sure. Because then she goes back to teaching when she's able to. So she understood, all right, well, it's a give and take. I'm going to, we're going to do this now, and then I'm going to do my thing later. And then you do your thing later, and I just think it's a real testament to a strong relationship.
Yeah. I mean, we, and man, our marriage was rock solid all the way till the end. And you can never be prepared for somebody leaving this world the way that she did. Can't. It was so abrupt. Obviously untimely. She wasn't sick or anything, but our marriage was on a real high note. And there was COVID going on, and she was teaching from home. She didn't have to. I don't believe she had to log in to teach her students until like 10 or 10:30 or 11. So got to spend time with her in the morning, and I was finding ways to leave work early just to come home and spend time with her and the kids. And so, we had a great marriage, and we were married just about 15 years. And those 15 years, um, probably were better than some people that, were married 40. And I'm blessed to have known her for the 20 years that I did. Very blessed to have been married to a person like her for 15.
It's amazing to hear someone like yourself say that you were blessed to have known somebody for 20 years. I find that amazing, because you could fall into, and I'm sure there are times when it was super dark and you can fall into that. And I think going about it the right way, like you said, not looking at so much the tragedy of the loss, but the fact that you had the opportunity to know somebody for 2 decades, for most of your life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I, really don't think I had the option to think of it any other way. I've got 2 kids, and it could have been really easy to, kind of fall into a hole, but I've got a great family around me. Um,
Yeah, I can't. It's so difficult to like have a conversation about something so raw, and it's obviously super emotional and painful. So whenever you need to take a break, like,
oh
feel
yeah,
free,
no, it's
like,
fine.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't
Um,
apologize.
but like I was saying, it could have been real easy to go into a downward spiral, but I've got a really strong family. You wouldn't believe how strong your kids are. But my kids got me through it. Bella Bella's my daughter, and she was always the one to pretty much. It's not what she would tell me. There were certain times where I would tell her if something wasn't going her way that it's all right. You've been through a lot. Just be happy with where you're at. And she told me numerous times that she wasn't going to use anything as an excuse. For a 14, 15-year-old kid to say that, that's pretty powerful. So if she's not going to go into a downward spiral, as her father, and as a parent, I can't. And my son, has been there for me. He's very emotionally in tune with what's going on. It was something else. As a parent, you're supposed to be there for your kids, but it was something else when your kids are there for you at such a young age. But again, I've got a real strong family, and this community has been with us and has supported us. And, it's just a testament to the kind of people that are here in Denison, Texas.
Yeah, that's impressive. So your kids showed you some strength.
Absolutely.
And your kids are teenagers?
They are. Yes, sir. 15 and 12.
Okay. And how have they done?
I think as well as you possibly could. Again, that day they were asleep, and my mother-in-law had to come running in our house and tell them what was happening. So you could imagine just the initial shock of that. You're asleep and you wake up to your grandmother telling you that both your parents have been hit, and she doesn't know if they're alive or dead. That's what my kids woke up to April 21st, 2020. They are so strong. It's been 17 months. You would think that I could get through interview, but sorry. Kids are handling it as well as anyone could. Again, just kind of falling back on the strength of our family. Katie's family is from here. They're all from Denison, Texas. My mom moved up here a while back from Dallas, and Katie's dad lives in Oklahoma, just about 45 minutes away. So, very large family presence here, and they've just been they've been outstanding.
And I know you said it's been 17 months, and it's only 17 months. I mean, I wouldn't. I wouldn't worry about that. If you need to take a break or whatever, that's totally cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if it is, I know it is painful for you to talk about, but can you tell us what you remember of that day?
I remember everything about that day. So I had gotten up. I had started to work out in the backyard before I went to work, and the night before, uh, told Katie we had gone to bed at about 9, 8, 9, and told her that I was going to work out and I was going to get up and walk in the morning also. And she said, "Okay, go ahead and wake me up, and I'll go with you." And rolled my eyes. She was not a morning person, so I said, "Okay, yeah, I'll wake you up." Went into the backyard, worked out, sent her a text message at about, I think I looked on my phone. It was actually like 7:16, and asked her if she wanted to go work out. Of course, got no response. So I went in and woke her up, and she said, "No, I'm not going to go walk." And I guilt tripped her and said, "Come on, let's go. You said that you wanted to go. Let's go." And she got right up. Um, we went out the garage. I told my son, he was kind of stirring around, and I told him that we were going to go walking. And Katie has never walked with me in the morning. This is the first time that she ever took a walk with me. And my son has gotten up with me before and gone running and walked, up and down the street. Um, Very thankful that he went back to bed. Um, so he went back to sleep, and we live outside the city limits, and we live on a really long road that goes about half a mile, and then it dead ends. So we would go walking down, we would go west down Glenwood, and we normally would go walk. There's a golf course by us. Um, we would normally go walk on the golf course, and she saw it, and there was some dew on the ground. The grass was a little high, and she didn't want to get her legs wet because she was going to come back home and sleep for an hour or so. Kids didn't have to log into class till like 10 or 11. And I think at that time, everybody was logging in, for like 30, 45 minutes. The teacher was giving work, and then, she had office hours. So she said, "Well, no, let's not go walk on the golf course. Let's just walk down Glenwood, which is the road that we live on. And I'm going to show you where these killdeer are nesting." Again, big into biology. She studied ornithology in college and loved killdeer. So I said, "Okay." And those are birds that nest on the ground. So we walked all the way down to where there's a housing development on the north side of Glenwood, and there's some undeveloped lots. And she was looking, and we looked all over, and she couldn't see any. And so she said, "Let's go ahead and turn around." I said, "Well, let's walk up a little bit more." She said, "Nah, I want to go ahead and turn back." All right. So we started to walk back, and we got about 3/10 of a mile from where we stopped to look at those killdeer. And we were walking alongside the road, And about that time, that's when Corey Foster hit us with his F-250 from behind. He was traveling from his house, which was just about where we were when we were looking on the opposite side of the road for those nesting birds. He traveled those 3/10 of a mile, crossed over the roadway, hit us both. Hit us so hard that he knocked us out of our shoes, sent us approximately 70, 75 feet. And I'm not a small guy, and sent me. I've obviously never been hit that hard in my life. Katie and I were walking, and she would always walk a little bit to my right. And I don't know how many times that I would, as a man, you're taught that, you always walk on the side of the road. I would always kind of tap her on the shoulder, and she was very assertive, and she was like, "Don't tell me what to do. I'll walk here, and I'm fine." But we were walking right on the edge of the road, right alongside the roadway, and he came over, and he hit us. I knew pretty quick what had happened. It was such a shock. I don't remember feeling the initial impact of when he hit us. I just remember flying through the air. And still to this day, I don't know how we didn't hear him. I mean, he was in a 6,000-pound truck. And I don't know how we didn't hear it. That's the one thing that I keep on going back to. And you always try to come up with some sort of reason of why things happened, and I can't for the life of me understand how we didn't hear that truck. I could hear that truck now with the truck that he drives. I can hear it quarter mile away before he turns on to our street. And Katie would be in our bedroom, and I would be in the living room, and I swear I would have the TV on like 5, and she would text me to turn down the TV. So we did not hear it at all. He hit us. I was going through the air, and I remember thinking that we got hit. I could see his truck out of the corner of my eye as I was going through the air, and it's almost like we were going the same speed. I hit the ground, and I rolled, and got up and started yelling what happened. At that point, I remember Corey was out of his truck and had told me something along the lines of, "I'm sorry, John. I didn't know it was y'all. I was trying to clean my windshield." Those were his words. Those were the 2 sentences. And that's when I saw Katie. She was, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 feet away from me. I got hit more towards the golf course, and she got hit into the golf course, but more of at a flat line right by a tree. And she was leaned up on her left elbow, and she was looking over me, and she let out this moan that had a lot of pain in it. And at that point, I felt I was trying to get up to go walk over to her, and I couldn't. It felt like there was a ratchet strap around my midsection, and it was getting tightened. I tried to get up, I couldn't. I crawled over to her, and I laid her down on her back, and I remember telling her it was going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. I had been yelling for somebody to call the police. At that point, one of our neighbors had stopped. She had gotten out, and she sat right by the top of Katie's head. And I've never met this lady before and never even looked up at her. I never saw this lady's face until I met her on scene, probably 2 months later with the district attorney. I never even looked up and saw this lady's face. I just remember hearing her voice, and she was telling Katie was going to be fine also. I noticed that Katie wasn't breathing, and I was begging for her to breathe, and then she finally started to breathe, and there was short breaths, 10 to 15 seconds in between each breath, like a really like quick labored breath. And I thought to myself, maybe we're going to be okay. Then I looked at her eyes, and her eyes were fixed and they were staring straight up. She wasn't blinking at all. Begged for her to blink, beg for her to blink. And man, I was trying to close her eyes. I see if she would open them back up, but her eyes were fixed, staring straight up. And I think she was already gone. I think that was her body just trying to hold on. I was told by a family member that somebody at the trauma center that Katie went to said that with the impact with the truck and the way it snapped her head back, that um, when her head hit the hood, which there is a massive dent. I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures of the truck, but there is a massive dent on the driver's side of the hood, and that's where her head hit. So her body folded all the way back on the truck, her head hit, and then when she was projected forward, they said with the amount of swelling that her brain did, that her brainstem snapped. And I believe that when she made that moan that I talked about, I believe that was her soul leaving her body, and I believe that her body was just going through the process of shutting down. The paramedics showed up, in my opinion, in a great amount of time. I mean, I believe they were there less than 10 minutes. I mean, 7 minutes. They got there. They started to work on Katie. I remember hearing them say that they needed to get medical transport for her air. And I saw them working on her. Then they came over to me. They loaded me up. They put me into the back of an ambulance, and then just wanted to know how she was doing. Wanted to make sure that my kids were taken care of. And the last time that I saw Katie that day was when she was getting put on a gurney, and I was getting put in an ambulance. And then everything else is pretty much on that body camera footage that we've put on social media.
And how are you doing? How are you doing physically at that time and now?
At that time, I had 4 broken ribs and I had 2 fractured vertebrae. And I was told I had some bruising on internal organs. I was in the hospital, obviously, that day. The next day, they said that they wanted to keep me a couple more days, but they said, you probably won't stay. And I said, you're 100% correct. Left the hospital to go be with my kids, and to go say goodbye to her body. But now physically, I'm fine. I mean, still have some lingering pain in my back and my elbow, but could have been a whole lot worse. And you know, I'm lucky. Gone through therapy as much as I could. My daughter still goes. I think that whole process will take a while. I don't think that I'll ever get over it. I don't think any of us will ever get over it. We just got to get through it, into a point to where when you start thinking about it, it's real easy to let irrational thoughts take over. I just try to keep it as rational as possible, and don't ask why. I don't believe there was a reason why Katie was taken and I was left here. I believe that's all free will. We're just trying our best to get through it. So that's the best that we can do.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
So, by all accounts, the individual who hit you and Katie, Corey Foster, he was a repeat offender, correct?
He had a 30-year history of interactions with police, yes. From unlawful carrying of a weapon to breaking into a building when he was younger, to traffic violations as an adult. He had, from what I believe, it looks to be at least 2 DUIs that were pled down to public intoxication. I believe he had 1 DUI already. The other 2 public intoxes, those were, I believe, those were DUIs that just got pled down. Got sent to the DA's office. Corey had a good lawyer, and rather than prosecute him, they went through a plea deal, and that's it. But no, he's had 30-year history of infractions, and speeding, reckless driving, DUI, public intoxication. Has never been held accountable once. Never.
Was he given a field sobriety test at the scene?
He was given a field sobriety test approximately 50 minutes after he hit us.
And you said 50, like 50?
50, so 10 minutes short of an hour. Yes.
Right.
He was given a field sobriety test. He was given the horizontal gaze test. Couldn't see his eyes in the body camera. Trooper said that he passed that. He walked a line. Trooper said he passed that. He held 1 foot up in the air. Didn't hold it for 30 seconds. Held it for, 23, 24 seconds, and was shaking horribly. Couldn't keep his balance. Fell down on one side and started laughing. Said that it was his work boots, and that's why he couldn't keep his balance. I want to make sure that you guys know through this whole ordeal that was captured on the body camera by Tarif Al-Khatib, the trooper that was the lead trooper that day. Not once did Corey Foster ask how Katie Palmer was doing. Not once. Never showed any emotion other than laughing twice. After the field sobriety test, which the trooper said that he passed, he then gave him a PBT, a portable breathalyzer test, in which Corey blew a .06 50 minutes after he hit us, which I would assume that any seasoned law enforcement officer would look at that and go, okay, it took me 30 minutes to get on scene, which there's no accountability to what Corey Foster is doing for those 30 minutes before DPS got on scene. And then the trooper was on scene 20 minutes prior to giving him that portable breathalyzer test. So if you did the quick math, you would think that he would be very close, if not over a .08, which is the limit in Texas. And I think at least 4 or 5 times on Tarif's body camera footage, he mentioned the strong smell of alcohol. Said he could smell it coming from his breath. Corey told Tarif that He had stopped drinking last night, first at 7, then at 8, then at 9, and then he didn't know when he stopped. And he said he only had 5 drinks the day before, which is, I mean, anybody with common sense would go, there's no way you're going to drink 5 drinks the night before and stop, 10 hours before you get into this incident and still smell like alcohol. And then on one of the other body cameras, everybody that was on that scene, I'll say this, Tarif Al-Khatib knew the type of person Corey Foster was. In some body camera footage that we just got released to us 3-4 weeks ago, I believe that one of the other troopers, David Taylor, probably meant to turn his body camera off, and the officers had a lot of candid conversations. And Tarif Al-Khatib was quoted as saying, as soon as I walked up to the scene and saw it was him, I was like, he's probably drunk. They knew what type of guy Corey was.
He had that reputation?
Absolutely. Yes.
And you said that his blood alcohol was 0.06?
0.06, 50 minutes after, yes.
And the legal limit is 0.08. Okay.
The legal limit for intoxication is a 0.08, correct?
Yeah.
What about obstruction of his windshield? He claimed he couldn't see out of his windshield, or he was cleaning it.
What he told DPS, which is the Department of Public Safety, which is the de facto state police in Texas, and this was written in Tarif Al-Khatib's report. Okay, he said that Foster told him that he couldn't see when he left his driveway, and that his windshield was foggy. So instead of putting the defroster on, he drove out of his driveway and traveled 0.3 miles blind, and then said that the sun hit his windshield. And not only was he blinded by the foggy windshield, but he was also blinded by the sun. That's a bullshit excuse. Sorry for the language, but that's just an excuse. The drive from his house, from his mailbox to where we were hit, is 38 seconds, going 33 miles an hour, which is at the low end of what the county hired a third party to reconstruct the wreck, because DPS did not do it. DPS didn't even mark the scene at all. Nothing. So they didn't go take him to go get a blood test. They didn't interview any potential witnesses that were on scene, and they didn't mark the scene. Third party report said he could have possibly been traveling between 33 and 43 miles an hour. It's hard to determine that because, again, there was no markings. So they really had nothing to go off of other than we think Katie's body was here. We think John's body was here. And based upon some physical evidence that we saw on the 15 pictures that they took at the site, which is crazy, just 15. And I'd say 8 of those were of the truck. They determined that he was going between 33 and 43 miles an hour. So I had somebody drive me in their truck, and I filmed it, and I put that out on social media too. 38 seconds driving blind, and then you cross over the roadway and hit 2 people smelling strongly of alcohol. And I also want to bring something else up. We got his phone records. Okay, this has not been released yet. Not only was he claiming that his windshield was obstructed by environmental factors and he was blinded by environmental factors, the foggy windshield and the sun, which according to an independent third party, again, every driver has to deal with that. Okay. Stating environmental factors caused a wreck when you had 38 seconds, just 0.3 of a mile of drive time. It's not an excuse. We got his cell phone records. He placed a call to a local number 31 seconds before calling 911. The timeline that we have in place that we've presented to the DA along with these phone records would indicate that Corey Foster was also manually distracted by dialing this number in engaging in the call seconds before he hit us. As he made that call, he obviously already couldn't see. He made that call, drifted over to the other side of the road, engaged in the call, hit us, came to a rolling stop because there were no brake marks, and he came to such a casual stop that the recorder inside the truck did not record his speed. He thought he hit a telephone pole, is what he told state police. He got out with his phone in his hand, saw what he did, made the statements to me. I'm sorry, John, I didn't know it was y'all. And I was trying to clear my windshield. I was yelling for somebody to call the police as I was crawling over to Katie. Corey looked down. He was already outside of his truck, had his phone in his hand, ended that call, and 2 seconds later called 911. And we have a witness that drove up, the same witness that came down to come sit by Katie when I had crawled over to Katie, and stated that Corey was already on the phone in the middle of the road when she got there. So the DA never requested his cell phone records at all. State police never looked at his phone for distracted driving. The DA told me twice that they would get his phone records. This was once before the grand jury. And of course, they didn't have the phone records for the grand jury. Then one time after the grand jury hearing, they said, we'll look at the phone records and see if there's anything else that we can get. They never requested this. I sent them a Freedom of Information Act request, just asking for any evidence that they did indeed request those phone records, and they would not answer me. And they sent my request to the Texas Attorney General, stating that what I was asking for was investigative materials that they could not release because Corey Foster was not indicted. I didn't ask for the phone records. I asked for evidence that they even requested them in the first place. Those phone records were handed over to the district attorney's office approximately 6 weeks ago.
There was a grand jury that was convened, right?
There was a grand jury on August 19th. And a grand jury in Texas consists of 12. That day, one juror called in sick, so that dropped us down to 11. And then another juror recused himself because he either knew Corey or he knew me. They did not replace those jurors with alternates. So we went in there with 10. And in Texas, you have to get 9 grand jurors to vote for an indictment. And so you had to get 9 out of 10.
So it would have been 9 out of 12. Sorry to interrupt. It would have been 9 out of 12 if there were 12 people there.
Correct. So if you have one person, if you had 2 people that just didn't like the color of my shirt that day for one reason or another, could have been a myriad of reasons why. I asked the prosecutor, Kerry Ashmore, that day, why weren't the other 2, juror seats filled? And his response was, I don't know. Didn't get a reason why we didn't get a full grand jury. I know now, as of 2021, there has been legislation that has been passed and enacted to where you have to have 12. So, yeah, I mean, and there are some cases where only 9 grand jurors were present and you had to get all 9 to, vote. They didn't have all the evidence that day. They did not have the phone records. They also did not have that third-party report. So they had DPS did not recreate the scene, okay? Which is from other law enforcement officers and other troopers. I've heard that's crazy. I mean, this is what DPS does when it comes to traffic accidents. State troopers, that's one of their sole responsibilities, is to investigate these accidents, or in my case, incidents, because I don't think this was an accident, and supposed to gather as much information as possible. Obviously, from what I've said, Sharif Al-Khatib did not do his job that day at all. He didn't collect the evidence that was in Corey Foster's body, nor did he mark the scene. DPS as a whole failed because they did not recreate the accident. Grayson County hired a third-party firm to come out and recreate that wreck. They did that. The gentleman that reconstructed that testified in front of the grand jury. Now, what the grand jury didn't have was his final report. The grand jury was on August 19th. The date of the final report was August 25th. Six days, which there's no reason for that at all. That report was very damning towards Corey Foster. Very damning. Put all the liability, obviously, on Corey Foster. Listed everything that he did wrong. Did mention that alcohol could have been a contributing factor. Did mention that it didn't matter if the fog or the sun obstructed his vision as a driver and an operator of a motor vehicle. Those are conditions that other drivers have to deal with as well. If you cannot drive and if you cannot see, then you should not drive. And you sure should not drive for 38 seconds or 0.3 of a mile. He made that decision to continue to operate his motor vehicle in a reckless manner. That was not given to the grand jury at all.
Yeah, I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. I'm sitting here listening to this and thinking, it doesn't matter. Like, we've all driven in a car that has a foggy window or a windshield, and we've all driven into the sun, and we slow down and we put the visor down, and we're like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm like hyper aware when I'm in that situation because I don't want something like that happening. That's, I mean, at the very, very, very least, it's just reckless driving. Not just, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just reckless.
If that's not what reckless driving is, then I would like for somebody to tell me what it is.
Well, maybe he had to have been on the phone at the time. Oh, he was.
He absolutely was. So we have somebody who was visually distracted, couldn't see out of his windshield, whether he wants to blame it on the fog, whether he wants to blame it on the sun. I've never heard the weatherman tell me it's going to be a really foggy, sunny day. Which if you look at the DPS report, they interchange. I think they only mentioned condensation once, which that's what it was. It was condensation on his windshield that allowed him not to see. But the report says fog all over the place. So he says that he was distracted by the fog and the sun, which you can't have both. I mean, I don't think I've never been out on a foggy day and been, man, this sun is horrible. Never. So it was the condensation on his windshield that he could not clear, obviously for 0.3 of a mile. And it was the also added excuse of, I guess, the sun hitting the condensation that further visually distracted him. It was also the manual distraction that he had in his hand by dialing the number. And let's also throw in the fact that his cognitive functions were impaired, slowed, or dulled by the fact that he had a strong presence of alcohol coming from his body. And we don't know what else was in his body. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at the body camera footage from that day, very emotionally flat. I believe that he was on some other sort of substance, whether it was, I don't want to make any speculations, but there was, in my opinion, something else that day that impaired him cognitively. So there are 3 major issues there that led to him speeding, crossing over the roadway, hitting 2 people, not knowing what he hit, sending one to the ICU, and killing another. And instead of being taken to the hospital for a blood test, Sharif Al-Khatib loaded him up in his cruiser, drove him home.
He went home after?
Yeah, he went home. The trooper allowed him to get his 2 Glocks out of his truck. That
What?
yeah, oh man. Yeah. So when they were doing the inventory of his truck, they asked if he had any weapons. And he said, yes, I have 2 Glocks. The trooper then asked him, are they loaded? He said, yes. The trooper goes, okay, why don't you get them out and hand them to me?
What?
It's all going to be listed down in inventory.
Okay.
Texoma Auto Care is
two
who we're going to
pistols
have
in
get
there.
it. Let's get those pistols out. Yeah, let's get those out.
You want to do it or you
No, you can get them.
Are they loaded?
Yeah.
You're doing good without it.
Yeah. 2 Glocks, huh?
Yeah, and I'm not even a Glock fan.
Let me ask you guys a question. If you ever got pulled over by a police officer and the police officer asked you if you had loaded weapons in your vehicle and you said yes, what are the chances that that officer is going to go, okay, why don't you go ahead and hand them to me? 0.0. And I'll tell you why Tarif Al-Khatib let Corey Foster do that is because Tarif Al-Khatib knew Corey. Tarif Al-Khatib had a pre-existing relationship with Corey Foster, again, on social media, because that's our only platform other than these great podcasts that we've done. I've got pictures of them at a Halloween party together the year before, which is less than 4 or 5 months. And then the wives at a Christmas party, arm in arm. They were friendly. They knew each other, and the wives used to work together. They both were hairdressers. Grayson County is a small county, but it's not a tiny county. There's probably 100,000 that are in Grayson County. So I mean, it's not like a small county out in West Texas that encompasses hundreds of thousands of square miles and has 30,000 people. He knew Corey. Again, just to go back to that one statement that I made where he was talking to the other troopers, stating that as soon as I walked up and saw it was him, I was like, he's probably drunk. So why a trooper would make that statement, I don't know, but I do not believe that he thought that the body camera of Trooper David Taylor was on. Well, it was on, and it recorded everything he said, and we've already released that out. We've given that to the DA as well, and the way that they handled themselves that day on scene was anything but professional. Going back, and I'm sorry, I hope I'm not jumping all over the place here. Tarif had 2 conversations with a supervisor. And I was also told by law enforcement officers and other state troopers that with something like this, a supervisor should have come out on scene. For some reason, they didn't. But they talked to him twice on the phone. And when Tarif relayed what happened to Katie to his supervisor on the phone, his words were, she just whacked her head real good. Those were his exact words. Okay. Fast forward to when it's just the troopers on scene and all the ambulance have gone. The wrecker has left with the truck. I'm going to use some explicit language here. I'm sorry. Tarif's words to the other troopers were, he knocked the shit out of her, dude. Those were his words to the troopers when he thought the other body camera was off. So what he tells his supervisor and what he thinks are 2 different things. Now, something else, going back to when he gave Corey Foster a ride home, it's DPS policy that if you have anybody in your vehicle that you leave your body camera on or you leave the in-unit camera on. When Tarif went to go take Corey Foster home, he had the camera off the entire time. So that whole conversation going back to his house, and his house is only 0.3 of a mile away. Going back to his house, there is no recording at all. And there's no recording of a man who you let back into your vehicle with 2 loaded weapons. That's a gross deviation from DPS policy.
How is this person still in a position of authority?
He's been promoted twice since.
Oh my God.
What I've been told by other troopers is that sometimes promotions take place to get guys like Tarif off the street, which is completely backwards. But he's been in for 13 years and he gets promoted once and then he gets promoted again because of time and service, and now he's only on the road 2 times a month. So he won't have the opportunity to make mistakes.
And throughout this incident, did Foster ever say where he was going?
His words were that he was headed to go pick up some guys to go do some work. Those were his exact words. He was headed to go pick up some guys to go do some work. That's all.
Did anyone ever confirm that that story with the so-called guys?
That would mean that an investigation would have had to have taken place, right? And we know that didn't happen.
Do you know who he called?
I have an idea, but I don't know. It would just be speculating. I know that the district attorney's office has the phone records. I believe that I believe that they should look into that to see exactly where he was going, especially a phone call that was made 31 seconds prior to him calling 911. I think that's pretty important. I think you would have to agree with that.
I think whoever he was speaking with, he must have said, I think I just hit something.
I mean, how are they not a witness? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at the phone records, because I've seen them, so the phone rang for 24 seconds, and then the line seizure was 5 seconds. So what happened is that he placed this call, and my timeline, which I believe is the only plausible timeline, is that as he was placing his call, a second or two before he hit us is when he placed it. The phone rang for 24 seconds. No one picked up, and it went to voicemail for 5. Now, 5 seconds is not enough time to leave a message, even with just a default voicemail. I mean, it's probably 7 seconds or so. But that gave him enough time to place that call for 24 seconds. It went over to voicemail or picked up on an answering machine. And then he looked down and had the phone in his hand, into that call, 911 call, and it was two seconds later. So don't believe he had any contact with anybody on the other side of that line.
But there's probably a recording on the voicemail on his end, I would imagine.
I believe I don't think that there is. Again, I don't know. I don't know if 5 seconds would be a long enough time.
Oh, right. Yeah.
To go through the prompt. Hey, you've missed a call from, sorry, couldn't get to your phone. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you. Thanks. Click.
Yeah.
So I don't believe one was left, but it'd be really good if somebody did some investigating, i.e. the DA or, back then the DPS, and find out if there was a voicemail. And I really hope that the district attorney pays attention to that and, ask questions this time around.
You've done a great job gathering information as much as you seemingly can, and I know Iris has helped you a lot too. What's the story with this anonymous package that you received?
So I received some information from somebody who had been following what had been going on with Katie. This person reached out to me and dropped off some material relating to the last arrest of County Judge Bill Majors. Bill Majors is the acting county judge here in Grayson County, which obviously you guys know. The county judge is the de facto mayor of the county. Okay. They said to pay attention to a missed call. I said, all right. So played that footage. From what I read, he was at a bowling alley bar in Sherman, left. There was a DPS officer and a city cop that saw or heard him crash into a light pole. So they went over there and he had pulled into a gas station, and that's when the body camera runs. And it shows, I want to preface this by saying that me releasing that on our social media, I was not going after Bill at all. I was going after the phone call that he made. So I just want to make sure that, I do not want to get political at all. That's not my agenda. With Justice for Katie Palmer, my agenda is exactly what it is: justice for Katie Palmer. So watching this body camera footage from the trooper, he takes Bill out. He determines that Bill is indeed intoxicated, and Bill had left his phone in his truck. And the DPS officer went back to go get his phone, which would have been great if that happened in our case, and they actually reviewed it. And he saw that there was a missed call from Brett Smith. Brett Smith is our district attorney. So as it appears, the county judge knew that he was intoxicated. He had a DPS unit and a police unit behind him. He placed a call to Brett Smith. And I believe probably it would appear to discuss what was about to happen. I took offense to this when I saw it, for the simple fact that right there, I'm tired of the good old boys club. I believe that's what happened with Corey and Tarif. And I believe that's what it appeared that our county judge was doing. He was trying to get off for being intoxicated. I think at that point he was 3 times over the limit when he hit this pole, and was trying to get off. And you know what happens when you keep on letting guys off? You go walking on your street and you get run over at 7:45 in the morning. That's what happens.
It's unbelievable. Like, it just infuriates me that there's never, like, how is there never accountability? These stories that we hear, and it's over and over and over and over, and then like the worst tragedy happens, and then it's like, we're not going to do our job now. But we're going to continue to be repeat offenders, and we're going to continue to contribute to, like you said, the good old boys club. Like, where is the accountability?
There's none. There's none. And that was, and again, I'll say one last thing about Bill, then I want to get off Bill, because I don't want to turn it political at all. But that was his 5th time to be arrested for a DUI, his 5th time. Now this is only his 2nd conviction, but his 5th time.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
The grand jury was 2.5, 3 hours, which perplexes me. That perplexes me how you couldn't go in there. It would have been nice if they had that report from the third party to go, that's it. Just read the summary of findings, read all 12. And then a grand jury does not convict people. They indict them. They say there's enough evidence to move forward with a criminal trial. Okay. So I don't know if the district attorney's office had a pseudo trial in there and told them only vote for an indictment if you would vote this man guilty. That's not what a grand jury does. The grand jury looks at the evidence and goes, there's enough here for there to be a more thorough investigation and for this to be tried in open court. I don't believe that was the case. I don't know how the DA's office let this drag on for 3 hours. I think there was an hour of 45 minutes of deliberation, then 2 hours and 15 minutes of testifying. I had to testify in there because I obviously was a witness. Tarif Al-Khatib had to testify, and the third party had to testify. And we all know, and this is coming from every lawyer that I've talked to, every lawyer. There's not a single lawyer that will disagree with me when I say, if a district attorney wants somebody indicted, they go to the grand jury and they ask for an indictment. That's what they do. That's what's done. But that's not what happened. And I don't know. I don't understand the dog and pony show that went on August 19th, but it was a miscarriage of justice completely. And it's left our family with this hollow feeling again for the past 17 months.
Jesus Christ, I can't imagine your frustration, and we can only put a call to action out. What is your call to action for the listeners when you go on these platforms?
We need as much support on social media as possible. We had one call to action months ago, and we contacted Brett Smith and asked him to relook at this case, represent it in front of another grand jury. And I think I would ask the same thing now. The DA has the phone records. The DA has had that third party report. Brett Smith needs to bring this back in front of a grand jury. There is no reason why he shouldn't, especially with those phone records, especially since a grand jury didn't see that final report done by that third party. There's no doubt this has to go back in front of another grand jury with all of the evidence, and not just in front of a grand jury, in front of a full 12-person grand jury, not the 10 that we had before. That would be my call to action, is to contact Brett Smith again and let him know that it's unacceptable that this go on any further. So this has to go back in front of another grand jury.
Can you tell us a little bit about Colton's Law?
Colton Carney was going to work one day. His car broke down. He called his dad for help. His dad worked about an hour away. Colton had some difficulties. I believe he was autistic, had a job, very good at his job, loved working, had an issue with a tire, I believe. And also, I believe he had something wrong with one of his legs. He was either on like I don't want to say a scooter, but you know, those pads that you put your knee on and you can kind of scoot on with it. I don't know how to say it. He had some sort of device, and sorry, I'm going off in a rabbit hole here. Colton's car broke down one day. He was traveling, he was walking along the highway up a ramp, and somebody hit him very early in the morning. That person was never asked if they were under the influence of alcohol. When the family asked the police officer why they didn't test the driver for drugs or alcohol, the police officer's response was, it was too early in the morning. No one drinks or does drugs this early. That was the response. Colton's mother, Michelle Carney, who is about as tough as they are, she, as any mother would be, did not like that response, did not like the fact that the man that just killed her son wasn't even arrested, no grand jury, nothing. She didn't like that. She spent time. She contacted every member in the Texas House of Representatives, and only one member got back to her. That was Representative Terry Meza. And Michelle Carney and Terry Meza drafted a law, which is Colton's Law. The spirit of the law, as we intended it to be, was that if any motorist hits a pedestrian and causes either serious bodily injury or death, that motorist will be given a blood test to screen for alcohol or drugs. That was the spirit of the law. And I believe the way that the law is written now, that there has to be an arrest prior to the blood test. We're still working with state senators and representatives. Just the representatives and the state senators that we've worked with. The representatives are Representative Meza, Representative Smith, and Chairman White. And then there's two senators, Senator Springer and Hall. They have been steadfast in their support for this bill and any amendments that need to be made to this bill. However that process is, to ensure that, again, if a motorist hits a pedestrian and causes either serious injury or death, that it's a mandatory blood test. I don't know why that's not a law already. I know that if I just go up the highway and cross over the Red River into Oklahoma, I've been told that if this were to happen, then it's an immediate blood test, especially if they smell alcohol on you, then that's probable cause there. Texas obviously has different laws. Laws are meant to govern, obviously, but they're also meant to be adapted. And I believe in the situation that we've had with our incident, we can definitely see that the laws that are in place now need to be changed. It doesn't need to be up to the officer on scene to say this guy's okay. I don't believe that. I don't believe that he's impaired. I believe a blood test should be drawn. A blood test should be taken. There should not be any doubt. When he performed that PBT 50 minutes after, and it came back at 0.06, that should have been probable cause error. I believe that there's probable cause that he could have been drunk. We need to go get a blood test there. Believe the way that he was acting, Sharif Al-Khatib does not hold a certification to do field sobriety tests that test for anything else other than alcohol. So these field sobriety tests don't tell you if the person is impaired on any other illicit substance or a prescription. Nothing. So when the officer, in this case, Sharif Al-Khatib, made the decision not to get a blood test, he destroyed all the evidence that day, because all the evidence was being metabolized in Corey Foster's body. And now we'll never know. I know, my family knows, and I think anybody that watches that video knows that Corey was under some other substance, and that is my opinion, and that's the opinion of a lot of other people. But in a criminal court, I'll say, in a criminal court, you cannot prove that because there was no blood test. There's none. We know that there was alcohol in his system, and we know 50 minutes after there was a 0.06 reading, BAC. And that's all that can be proven outside of getting a toxicologist, which I think that would be a very good idea for the DA to do. But Colton's Law, House Bill 558, the spirit of that law would be to collect that evidence at the scene and not let it get destroyed, not let it metabolize. What happened that day has left our family with more questions rather than an answer. A blood test would have really solved that quick. A blood test would have given a baseline, and then they could have gone, okay, 2 hours after the wreck, he had a 0.045 based on his weight, the way that his body would metabolize this, existing medical issues, and what he ate that morning. This is what he would have been at. Or hey, he had something else in his system, which could have been a very high possibility that was the case. But again, we don't know, and it gets me because what I heard a lot of, and we campaigned for this, we lobbied for it. I went down to Austin 2 or 3 times. I've spoke with every single office, all 152 or 3 or 4 offices down there, 2 or 3 times each, whether it be a face-to-face meeting, a phone call, an email, a tweet, anything I could do to get attention to this law. And it always goes back to probable cause, which again, the probable cause in our case would have been the alcohol, the fact that there was reckless driving, and you've got one person going to the ICU, one person it's being care flighted to the trauma center in Plano. But everybody is very quick to say, well, we can't just go take somebody's blood. That driver has rights. What about the rights of the pedestrian that didn't do a damn thing? All I did and all we were guilty of was walking as a couple down the road to go look at some damn birds and come back. That's all we did that day. And we were lawful in how we were walking. We did nothing wrong that day at all. But yet we have to make sure that we don't infringe upon the rights of this person that just ended a life. And I was about a foot away, a foot and a half away. Had I been a foot over to my right, my kids would have been without parents. But it's okay because we didn't infringe upon the rights of this driver that had alcohol in his system already. I don't have a reason at all. Where are the rights of the victims? Where?
Well, yeah, people have this very skewed, warped view of what rights actually are. The scenario is that somebody screwed up, and you need to face consequences of that, so you start to lose certain rights in that scenario, and it only makes sense that someone should be tested to figure out why this happened. There's no rights there anymore. There's no more rights. Like, you have a limited amount of rights now.
And it's not a right to operate a motor vehicle. It's a
privilege.
100%. You have a license. There's not a company around that if you drive a forklift and you damage property or you have an accident, that doesn't require you to go take a drug test. How is that legal for a private company to do that? But then when we're talking about a man driving a 6,000 pound truck that hit somebody 70 feet, again, hit us so hard, knocked us both out of our shoes. I didn't think that was possible. And well, we can't go get a blood test because that would infringe upon his rights. It would be his Fourth Amendment rights for illegal search and seizure. That's what the argument was. And the way that our law, the spirit of our law was drafted is that, again, the officer would have to get a warrant from a judge. And so once that warrant is received from a judge, then they can go get blood. There hasn't been anybody that I haven't talked to that has either been a prosecutor or law enforcement or a state trooper that has said that a judge would have turned them down in our case. Absolutely not. Again, with reckless driving, with the smell of alcohol, and then the fact that what the PBT score was 50 minutes after. Tarif didn't even ask Corey if he would voluntarily take one. Didn't. That was never discussed with the supervisor. So when Tarif is making these 2 phone calls, never once is a blood test brought up on Tarif's side of the call, which leads me to believe that it was being discussed on the other side of that call. That's the only thing that makes sense. You have somebody that has just killed somebody, again, has seriously injured somebody else, and you, the trooper, aren't asking your supervisor, hey, should I go take this guy in? Like, should I go get him a blood test? Like, this is what he blew. No. Tarif told them what the PBT score was, and that conversation was on the other side. David Taylor, who was one of the other troopers on scene, asked Tarif if he was going to get blood. And Tarif's response to the other trooper was, no. All that was from last night. That was his reasoning, was that the alcohol was consumed last night. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. So he tells the other trooper they're not getting a blood test because all of this was from last night. Now, again, Corey couldn't tell you when he stopped drinking. 7, 8, 9, hell, I don't know. Now, fast forward to the last conversation that Tarif Al-Khatib has with his supervisor after making this statement to David Taylor. He had said to his supervisor, he said he stopped drinking about 8 or 9 o'clock, but I don't believe any of that. It's contradictory and complacency and absolute laziness. I know I support law enforcement 110%. I don't believe that Tarif is an accurate depiction of what law enforcement is in our county. I believe that Tarif Al-Khatib is an outlier. And was just lazy and was trying to help a friend out. I believe that's what happened, and I don't believe he should be a trooper, and definitely shouldn't be a trooper here in Grayson County. When you start making decisions like that, you need to be removed and you need to be gone.
Well, John, thank you so much for telling your story and coming on and just being so candid about everything. Again, I know like it's obviously painful and raw, and you're welcome to come back on anytime you want if you have any updates, or seriously, if you just want to talk, like we're open to have you on whenever. Incredible how strong you and your family are.
I could not have gotten through this without their support. My kids and I, that's what we've relied on the past 18 months. You take family for granted a lot just because they're always there. When something like this happens, you don't realize, first off, you don't realize how good you had something until something's gone. And I mean gone, like not coming back, gone. You don't realize how well your life was going until something is taken away, never to return, and not even a possibility. And then you also don't really grasp how much your family means to you until you need them, till you absolutely have to have them. That's what I went through. That's what my kids went through. And I mean, Katie's mom and dad have been with us all the time. In their grieving, they just lost their daughter. No parent should ever have to lose their kid. It's not how it works. Same with aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters of Katie. The support that we've had, even when they're going through their own grief, it's been amazing. That's just a debt that I'll never be able to repay. For what we've been through, we can still look back right now and say that we're still very, very fortunate and very lucky to have the family and the friends and the support of the community that we have. Man, I miss her.